Hey, today we're going to be talking about adaptations of different animals, the 3 different types of adaptations, and how to identify some animals based on those adaptations. So I'll pull out my skinks here in a bit and we'll look at their specific adaptations. But before I do, I want to show you some things that you're going to run across on the worksheet that is called a dichotomous key that shows you how to identify some animals. There's a few words on there that I want to make sure you guys are familiar with. So if you hear somebody talking about limbs, we're talking about arms and legs, right? Like appendages, your limbs. And when you hear somebody talk about digits, we're talking about like fingers and toes. So on a lizard, for example, well, the reason why this comes up in the dichotomous key is there's something that says that the 4th digit is longer than the rest on some lizards, not on all, but you can see with this guy that his 4th digit, specifically on the front limbs here, is longer than the rest. So that's something to look for in some reptiles. The other thing you're going to run across is it talks about being zygodactylous. Zygodactylous is kind of like how birds' feet are. They have some toes in front and some toes in back. So some lizards, like chameleons, have zygodactylous feet. So something to be aware of. So let's talk about these different adaptations. So something like zygodactylous feet helps an animal to be able to climb trees really well compared to feet like these, of course, right? So when we have body parts, physical body parts that are an adaptation to help an animal survive in their environment, those are called structural adaptations. Usually structural adaptations are things that we can see, but not necessarily, not always. For example, the way a snake's jaw is made, the bottom jaw is not actually even attached in the front. It's able to move this way and this way. So those are body parts, they're physical structures, and they're not necessarily as visible as some, but they are structural adaptations. Blubber underneath a whale's skin is still a structural adaptation, even though it's not something you can really see from the outside. So structural adaptations are body parts, and again, that word adaptation is anything that helps an animal survive in their environment. When we talk about adaptations in animals, it's not like that word, when we use it with people, sometimes we say you just need to adapt. You just need to adapt to your environment. For example, if you have a stressful class you're taking or a stressful job you're doing, we could say, oh, you just need to adapt, like you just need to get used to it, right? But that's not what we're talking about with animals. An adaptation is something that's developed slowly over time, not just because they needed to. It's developed slowly over time to really help them fit in their environment. Just like you can't drop a camel in the ocean and expect it to survive, or put a whale in the desert and expect it to survive, their bodies are really made for their special environments that they come from. And you'll see all the different things on them and characteristics that they have really allow them to survive where they live. And those are adaptations. So a camel's hump is an example of a structural adaptation. It's a physical part of their body that helps them to survive in the desert, stores fat, and helps them to get by for longer, about 2 weeks without drinking. Interestingly, I have to mention giraffes actually go longer than camels without drinking, up to about 3 weeks usually, but they get a lot of water from their diet. So I digress. In any case, structural adaptations are physical body parts. The other type of adaptation is, well, one of the other types is a behavioral adaptation. A behavioral adaptation is what an animal does to help it survive. That could be something like migration, migrating to follow where the food is at, to get to warmer climates. That's going to help an animal survive. So migration counts as a behavioral adaptation. There's plenty of other behaviors as well. Being able to hunt together in groups is a behavioral adaptation. It's going to help animals survive if they can work together and rely on each other. So behavioral adaptations are anything that they do. All right, lastly, the third one is a physiological adaptation. Physiological adaptations are the trickiest ones, but we got this. That means that an animal has something inside its body like metabolism, chemical processes, those sorts of things that help it survive. And that could include something like poison or venom. That could include skunk spray or how an octopus inks. It could be something like they conserve water and they have more concentrated urine. It could be that their feces are very, very dry to be able to conserve water. All of those things are chemical processes in their body related to metabolism, for example, that help them to be able to survive in their environment. So those are physiological adaptations. So again, we have structural, body parts, behavioral, what they do, and physiological, the chemical processes in their body. So 3 adaptations, and it's time. I'm going to go ahead and pull out my female skink because she is the friendlier one. I'll tell you a little bit about how I came across these guys before I pull them out. She is the friendlier of the 2, but I do have a male and a female. They're brother and sister, as far as I know, what I've been told. And these are Solomon Island skinks. Solomon Island skinks are no longer legal to export from the Solomon Islands. They are protected species there now because their numbers have dwindled so much due to people pulling them for the pet trade and due to habitat loss. But people are still illegally pulling them for the pet trade. They sell for like $1,000 each. It's really crazy the value that people have put on these and the things that people are willing to do to get their hands on one, as is true with many other exotic species. So it's certainly an issue to be aware of. I've had a lot of students actually who want to get into this type of animal awareness and animal welfare. So it's really something that I'm passionate about as well, if you have any questions about that. But mine came from a man who back in the 90s, so a while ago, back in the 90s, he was, he acquired a male and a female both from a pet store, and he started a little breeding project. This was almost 35 years ago, and he ended up with a bunch of babies, and over time, even more generations. And just recently, he was getting older and decided to get rid of some of his pets. So mine, my male and female, are both offspring from his pets, and these are still about 12 years old. They're pretty old already. So this was, like I said, quite some time ago. So let me go ahead and pull them out. It might take me a minute to get the female off of the branch that she's laying on because they have great adaptations to hold on to those branches. So I'll be right back. All right, everybody. This is Olive. She is my female, and she is olive color. I'm very creative, right? All right, everybody, this is Olive. Olive is my female, and she's actually fairly dry right now, like she needs to shed, but she has these amazing claws. That's why I'm using a towel and wearing long sleeves today. Her claws are great for hanging onto branches. They really get in there, but even cooler, she has a prehensile tail that allows her to hold onto branches with her tail. So these are really cool structural adaptations, you know, physical things that we can see. She's sensing the environment with her tongue right now, and these are her ears. They're holes without flaps. Pretty cool. But those are structural adaptations. Behavioral adaptations, I would say something cool is that she's crepuscular. Crepuscular is when an animal is not awake at night, not awake during the day, rather they're awake at sunup and sundown, basically, at dawn and dusk. So she's crepuscular. And let's see, for a physiological adaptation, she has a pretty slow metabolism. These guys move pretty slow. They're pretty chill. It's possible for them to bite. They have a lot of very, very small teeth. It would feel like getting your finger slammed in a door. It still would be bad, but they do not eat meat. They are herbivores, so I feed her things like dandelion greens and turnip greens, that sort of thing. A little bit of fruit, more greens than fruit, because fruit has a lot of sugar, of course. She's looking up what's up there. Let's see. So they have a pretty slow metabolism, especially because they're eating a lot of pretty low nutrient foods, or low energy foods, I should say. And some of the plants that they're eating are slightly poisonous. So mildly poisonous, maybe would be a better way to describe that. So, or poisonous to other species. So they're really physiologically made to be able to handle that and to be able to metabolize and process that kind of food. So that's a cool physiological adaptation, but I think they're amazing. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear from you and answer any questions, but I'm gonna show you off a little bit here. All right, you guys, I will talk to you again soon with the next lesson. Thanks.